Hello folks, in this one we're going to have a look at some of the best hybrid cars available on the used market at the moment. Some of these are fairly obvious, some of them fly a little bit under the radar, and we're using Auto Trader for all of these. Now we're going to start off with the Hyundai Ioniq. You might be aware of the Ioniq 5, the Ioniq 6, etc. But this is basically where it all started for Hyundai in terms of putting batteries into cars. So running costs on this, tax is nothing. And it's a combined 83 mpg and only insurance group 10. If we look at dimensions and things, we've got a fuel tank capacity of 45 litres. That seems really low, but obviously with that kind of mpg, 45 litres is more than adequate. You're going to get a really good range from the car and not spend all your life in the petrol station. 350 litres of boot space. So for the size of the car, you know, you'd perhaps expect a slightly bigger boot than that, but this is one of the things you'll often find with hybrids and plug-in hybrids is they lose a bit of that boot space to sort of accommodate the batteries. So you can get one of those. Look, 2016 model with 71,000 miles on it, 12 grand. Not too shabby. Next, we've got the Honda Jazz, and I've purposely gone for the latest generation of Honda Jazz. I don't think it's one of the best looking cars they've ever produced by any stretch of the imagination, but they're brilliant little things to drive, and the MPG and performance you get from it's pretty impressive. They're also really good at carrying passengers and stuff. Certainly very flexible seats in the back make it possible to use this thing basically as a little van. So nice little cars. Obviously they do have a certain image attached to them, sometimes a little bit unfair, but they don't really help that with the styling at times. Insurance group 19, 170 quid a year road tax and 62.8 mpg. Now during my time with the Jazz, I think I actually managed to beat the claimed mpg figures. And I was abusing the car, really. It was a little go-kart. I was tearing around in it. So even in the real world, you can expect really quite impressive MPG figures from this particular one. The reason I said go for this one and not one of the earlier models, by the way, is because the infotainment system on this one is leaps and bounds above where Honda infotainment systems used to be. And it just feels like a much, much more modern car than the previous model. You see 0-62 is 9.4 seconds and you've got 304 litres of boot space. But when you put those back seats down, you've got over 1,200 litres of boot space. By the way, I hope it goes without saying, folks, but all the cars in this video are 𝘼𝙁compliant. So they all comply with Euro 6. Which makes them 𝘼𝙁 compliant at the time I'm recording this video. This looks like a reasonable example. This Jazz 2021 model, 15.5 grand basically. That's a really good price new. I think these are over 30. So buying a 2-year-old one seems to make a fair bit of sense. Next, we've got the Toyota Yaris Cross. Again, I've achieved ridiculous MPG figures with one of these. I think in the comments to my review video, someone said they'd got 80 MPG out of it on a run. I certainly saw early 60s the whole time I had the car. £20,500 for a 2021 model. This is the Yaris Cross. I don't think it's the worst looking car Toyota have ever made. That's for certain. The interior's a little bit bland, but completely functional. The infotainment system is a little bit pants, but you do have Apple CarPlay. So that can come to the rescue for you. In terms of running costs, 170 quid a year road tax, 64.2 mpg. Insurance group 11, 397 litres of boot space and 0-62 in 11.2. Next, we've got my favourite hybrid car at the moment. Actually, one of my favourite cars at the moment that you can buy new. This is the latest version of the Honda Civic. Now, this is a very new car. These have only been out for like a year. So you're not going to get one of these cheap. £28,950 for this one, 17,000 miles on it, more or less. I personally think it's one of the best looking Civics they've made. It's certainly got probably the best interior in a Civic that I can remember in recent times. And it's just a lovely thing to drive. I've reviewed one of these twice actually, once for my channel, once for Men and Motors. And it felt better the second time around, which is not often the case. Insurance group 28, 170 quid a year road tax, 56.5 mpg. Again, that MPG figure is very realistic, even though this is a 2-litre petrol car. 410 litres of boot space and 7.9 seconds to 62. It feels a bit quicker than that, in fairness, but, you know, under 8 seconds is by no means slow. If you want an exec car, but you don't quite have the budget for a newer one, One of these flew under the radar a little bit. It's the BMW 330e. BMW basically took a petrol 3 Series and added plug-in hybrid technology. So you can run it as a full EV for about 5 minutes because the battery range is not amazing on them in the real world. But there's plenty of performance, and if you use it in mixed driving, you'll get reasonable MPG and plenty O performance. Just under 11,000 quid for one of these. This is the 2017 model with 75,000 miles on the clock. Running costs, 0 road tax, 148 MPG, obviously that's nonsense. 31 is the insurance group. The one problem with these is that you lose boot space. So the boot is only 370 litres. It would normally be getting on for 500, I think, in a 3 Series. But performance, 6.10 seconds to 62. Now that's when you're using all the battery and all the engine. I'd always suggest you just put it into eco mode and get the most out of that little bit of battery power that you do have. 23 miles is the all-electric range, but in reality, you're not going to get anywhere near that. You might get 15. That might be enough to do your daily commute though, and it's going to cost you next to bugger all to charge that thing up. On a similar theme, we've also got the 5 Series, came out at the same time. Again, it's the 530e. The E means, I don't know, electric or efficient or something. 29 miles of range in that one. Running costs on that, 170 quid a year, ridiculous MPG. 36 is the insurance group, and you've got 410 litres of boot space in the 5 Series. 17,000 quid, 75,000 mile, 2018 model. So again, if you have a short commute every day and you'd like to do that on electricity rather than on petrol, but you still want the flexibility to do long runs, look no further. And while we're on the subject of BMW hybrids, we've got to look at the i8, haven't we? Because what a thing this was when it came out. Don't forget, this came out, I don't know, 10 years ago. And just look at it. Wow. I mean, that's still a stunning looking car. You know, it's a real statement, is it not? It's worth having for those doors alone, folks. I mean, come on, let's get with the program here. Let's look at the numbers. So you can get a 2014 model here with 70,000 miles on it for 32 grand. These started life, I'm sure, well over 100 grand. Insurance group 50 is the highest insurance group you can get. 0 road tax, 134 MPG. Again, that is a nonsense. You've got 357 brake horsepower that will get you down the road from 0 to 60 at 4.4 seconds. And you've got 154 litres of boot space. So if you go into Tesco's and do their little meal deal where you get a sandwich, a packet of crisps and a can of Coke, you'll be able to store all that in the car at the same time. It's also got 23 miles of all-electric range. But what a thing. I've always blown away by these because it felt like a concept car that BMW actually put into production, and always love to see them on the road. Moving on to Volvo, obviously you can also get a Volvo S90 plug-in hybrid. That's not a bad way to go. You'll probably pay about 20 grand for one of those. This is the XC90, the T8 twin engine, so 2 litre petrol with plug-in hybrid technology. You get 25 miles of all-electric range. Again, you won't get that in reality. 28 grand for this 2017 model, 0 road tax, insurance group 43, 5.3 seconds to 62, 401 brake horsepower. 262 litres of boot space, but that's with all the seats up, so you've got 7 seats in this. But 1,816 litres with those seats down, so that is then a van at that stage. You've also got 4-wheel drive, of course. This is going to do everything anyone could ever really want or need, and it's going to be ULEZ compliant for at least the foreseeable future. 28 grand for a 2017 XC90 T8. Then the last one we're looking at today is probably the one that's taken the biggest depreciation hit in the smallest amount of time. It's the Audi A8 Saloon 60 TFSI E-Quattro Sport Tiptronic. 20,000 miles on this one. It's a 2021 model. It's 44 grand, all bar the shouting. Now, I'm sure this car's already lost half its value. I would swear blind these things are about 90 grand new. It's currently 44 and it's 2 years old with 20,000 miles on the clock. If you haven't experienced an A8 before, it's a very special thing. They are lovely cars. They float along the road. You know, it's a car that's meant to be driven in rather than driven, but they're lovely things to drive. You know, you can do like your transcontinental driving in these things, and get out refreshed. They are lovely. 170 quid a year road tax, insurance group 48, 0 to 62 in 4.9 seconds, and you've got 390 litres of boot space. Again, in a standard A8, that boot space would be much more than that, but you lose a bit of it because of the battery packs. There we go, folks. I think that's a nice varied selection, and there should be something in there to suit everyone. I know they're not the cheapest cars in the world. I've specifically looked at slightly newer cars, and with the plug-in hybrids, obviously they haven't been around for that many years, so they are still quite expensive, and you still have to weigh up, you know, unless you're using a plug-in hybrid to do a short all-electric commute every day or something like that, is it going to be worth it for you? Because when that electric power runs out, you're dragging around a big heavy battery. So that's something to bear in mind. But a bit of food for thought for you there. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you are looking at buying a second-hand car, you know by now not to trust the fact that this has passed checks on Auto Trader. You know to get yourself a V-check. The main reason for that is the salvage history report, which will show you if a car's ever been through a salvage auction and what it looked like when it was. As you can see, this one's had airbags going off all over the place. Loads of cars like that on the road right now are unrecorded, and they won't show up on the lion's share of those used car history checks. £3 on V-check shows you that. If you want the full report, it's a tenner. There's a link in the video description that will take you there. Using that link helps support the channel. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And please follow me on social media. I'll see you on the next one.